Good evening and welcome to another edition of the live Magpie Circle show. And there are a few smiles around for this show after what was certainly one of our most popular shows last week with Mark Stallard when we were looking back at the opening 10 games. But sadly, 3 of the last 10 had been defeats. But back on track, Yeovil on Saturday. Want to hear from anyone and everyone who went down to Somerset. 370 of you did. Value your opinions and thoughts. Already got a few of them to read out. Reuben Rodriguez is back in the goals again. A brace for him takes his season's tally to 6. Still 9th after 11 games in the table. More managers getting the sack in the National League. Phil Brown at Southend is the 3rd one to go this season. Looking ahead to the FA Cup, off to Tamworth we go, a nice short little trip. What does the FA Cup mean to all of you? Is it still the big deal it once was? How important for you to get beyond Tamworth and get into the first round proper and pit our wits against a Football League side? Sunderland would be nice, wouldn't it? We went there and won a few years ago. And a happy 25th birthday to Kyle Wotton. Joined this evening by Chloe Page. Chloe, good to see you. And you're obviously on home ground with your wallpaper and your shirt in the background.
Yes, I got back from Lyon yesterday. So after a long trip, I'm back in Nottingham for a little while and then backwards and forwards to Manchester. But for now, I'm back in Nottingham. But it's great to have me back again.
Very, very good to see you. So we will be getting on with plenty of debate this evening. I'm going to, as it's FA Cup countdown, I'm just going to throw a quick quiz question out to you. It's fairly easy. No prizes. Who, and he's going to be a guest on our show in the near future, and it will be a biggie in every sense of the word. Who is the only Nottingham-born footballer to captain an FA Cup winning team? Do you know the answer, Chloe?
I don't think
you do.
No? I haven't. I'll have a think about it, but
yeah,
see what people come up with.
Let's see how quickly someone can get that. My money would be on Pythagorean probably getting it first. No one's got it yet, interestingly. Luke Beardsley, have a good stream, guys. I always watch back after karate. As you do. Glad we're back to winning ways, and Reuben is in great form. Lee Brearley, I agree, Luke. I hope Reuben keeps this consistency as he floated from good to half decent too many times last season. Ian Burchnall, evening both. Honestly, I was not too worried after the last 2 games. Losing both was unacceptable, but it didn't mean we were far off. Ian Burchnall, I love the FA Cup, always have and always will. Got my ticket for Tamworth. Yes, I got mine online earlier today. And the prize, there's about 10 of you. David Shorter, Stephen Orton, Hang For, Chris Jordan, Dean Gollin, Bob H. All got it right. But fastest on the buzzer was Ian Burchnall. Brian Kilcline. He'll be a guest on the show. Yes, only, I had to double and triple check this. Only Nottingham-born player. Pythagorean's coming in about 12th there. Not very good, Pythagorean. Brian is the only Nottingham-born FA Cup winning captain. Brian hails from Sherwood. 1 or 2 of you may well have played against him in schools football, but Sherwood lad came through Notts County's ranks, and after leaving Notts, I think it was in 12 to 18 months, he captained Coventry to win a famous FA Cup final against Tottenham Hotspur. But Killer had to come off with a few minutes to go, if memory serves. So he still went up and got the cup and everything, but he wasn't quite on the pitch at the end of the game. He had to go off with a few minutes to go. Right. I want to read out, because anyone that went to Yeovil above and beyond the call of duty. So anyone that went, please feel free to throw in your 2 penneth. Alan Cotting didn't know what to expect after the previous 3 games, but was a solid, impressive performance. Gave the ball away with careless passes, but fought to win it back. Looked good going forward, but need to shoot more. Good saves by our keeper at the end. First win I've seen there in 9 games, 9 trips to Yeovil. I have to say, I think you've been as well, Chloe, haven't you? It is one of the singularly most inaccessible places to get to. You go by car, it's virtually an hour off the nearest motorway. You go on the train, both stations are about 4.5 miles away, no buses, and you have to get a taxi to the ground. I'm trying to think if I've ever seen us win now. I'm not sure, as I have. You've been, haven't you, Chloe, before?
Yeah, I've been, and again saw us lose, so didn't make that trip down.
Yeah. It's a trip I know Francois Zoko made quite a bit, because he settled down in Nottingham, and we had him as a guest on one of our shows about a year ago, and he said it was a bit of a killer commute to Yeovil. Matt Woolett, who was also at the game on Saturday. Great afternoon in the sun. Brennan, brilliant. Kel, a little tentative, hope it's temporary. Reuben, a class above. Cameron, calm and in control. But if it wasn't for Patterson's great saves at the death, it could have easily ended in a draw. Rachel Lee, who went along, says better performance, well worth going down there. Now we just need to be on our game. Come on, you pies. Bill Underwood, what a difference a Cameron makes. I think the stat for Kyle is he's not been on a losing team this season. I think he's played 8 of the 11, and it's the 8 that we've won and drawn, and none of the 3 that we have lost already. Adopting hugely popular status on the terraces or the seats as we now sit in, Chloe. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I think we've not just missed him as a player, him as kind of a leader on the pitch. And the defenders we've had come in have done a job, but obviously we have lost those games. And to have him back and keep clean sheet and not just only win, the clean sheet's always massive, shows you the difference that he has on the pitch. Both kind of the way he comes across in his personality and his leadership skills, as well as the quality that he's got. So it was great to see him back. And yeah, keep that clean sheet and get 3 points back on the board.
M. Fole says, I'm from Sherwood. Very good. Let's just pick up some of the other Yeovil comments that we've been having. Ballum said he saw that head coach Ian Burchnall admitted he felt relieved after the Yeovil game following the disappointing results. Ian Burchnall, been to see Notts at Yeovil 4 times and not seen us win. Couldn't make Saturday. David Shorter was there Saturday and enjoyed the performance, he says. Gary Smithhurst, let's be right though, Yeovil were bloody awful. Yeah, it's an interesting one, that, Gary, because you play as well as the opposition lets you. I normally find the better managers tend to be the ones that, if they play a team that have been on fire for several games, then play badly for the first time for 6 games and you get the result. So yes, but I do think you play as well as the opposition lets you. Chris Gosling, we can't expect to go to a game away from home and our keeper not make a save. What else have we got? David Short says, I think Kel is lacking that match sharpness as opposed to fitness. Not surprising considering the problems he had last season. Okay, let's just pick up on a couple of things. What do we think, Chloe? It clearly releases a tap and a valve, not marked hot water or cold water, but marked pressure. Yeah, the valve has unquestionably been released with that performance on Saturday, and it needed to be released. You were at Halifax on Tuesday, and the travelling faithful there were clearly very disenchanted. And I think when I exchanged a few messages with you, you were clearly, inverted commas, seething at the time. As a result of Saturday, how much have you now mellowed again?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's more in the heat of the moment. I think I've said previously, I like to kind of take time to reflect a couple of days afterwards because emotions just get high, especially when you're traveling to an away game and you've lost previous games. And I think it's more the way that we lost the game. You go 2-0 up away from home. It was an awful night weather-wise. A lot of Notts fans, again, we've travelled very well. And they have a man sent off. And you're kind of like rubbing your hands together thinking, right, we're back. Had this bounce back that we wanted. And then it all just comes falling apart. But the disappointing thing was a lot of people in the crowd were like, we saw it coming, which you don't want to see. But like you say, it was just one of those after the match that there was a lot of anger amongst the fans. And it was kind of gone from disappointment maybe the last couple of games to more of an anger of we're letting this kind of happen to us, not every week, but the past couple of weeks that we tend to be kind of in control of the match. Like you say, 2-0 up and then kind of fall apart. And once one goes in, they all go in. But sitting back and reflecting, it's a results business and it's great to have 3 points back on the board, but that doesn't resolve all of our problems. This has got to continue. It's got to be a complete bounce back. I don't expect us to win all the games. We've got very difficult games coming up, but it's great to see, again, the clean sheet is huge after 3 losses. And we was obviously, we hadn't lost a game before the last few games and they all kind of come at once, but maybe you do want kind of results to maybe not always go your way in the beginning because it might kind of paper over some cracks. But I think it's certainly shown some of the fans and the manager what kind of needs to happen for us to be a top side this season. And obviously, we've spoken about before, the injuries have been massive. When it's your backbone, you've had so many defenders out and your goalkeeper, it's going to be very difficult. And I think you've got to take that into consideration. But it looks like we've got Cameron back now and hopefully that'll be for a while and the rest of them will kind of keep joining in the next couple of weeks. But you got to take every game as it comes. No game's easy, and we've definitely got kind of a bad run coming up as such. If you look at it, we've got a lot of top teams to play, but if you can beat those, then you'll be up there. So it's going to be very interesting to see how we go on from in the next couple of weeks.
We're going to come on to the the week from hell in a way that Notts will face when they entertain Stockport and Bromley, 2 home games in the space of 4 days, and at the end of that week go to Grimsby. So that's a real sorting out week. There's then hopefully another FA Cup tie if we can get past Tamworth, and then it's at home against Solihull. So on the one hand, we have 3 home games in 4, but every one of those games is going to be a real tough match, and it's going to be interesting to see, and we can talk about this a little bit later in the programme, about how we respond to that. What you would be looking for is the kind of performance that Notts put up against Wrexham, where they went into the Lions' Den, the Hollywood Millions and all the rest of it, and acquitted themselves extremely well. And that's kind of what you're looking for, because these will be big games for the likes of Grimsby, Stockport, and Bromley being the probably single most formed team in the division at the minute. But we'll come on to that a little bit later. Reuben Rodriguez. By my reckoning, when I look at the National League goal scorers charts, only I think it's 5 players have scored more goals than him so far this season. And I think we would all say that Reuben's been a bit up and down. So Shimanga has 9 for Chesterfield. Tarvin Campbell has 8 for Yeovil, as does Michael Cheek and Joe Waters. 7 Joe Sabara of Solihull, and then Reuben is one of 4 players alongside Paul Mullen, Josh Amira and Paul McCallum with 6 goals. Where are you with Reuben?
It's difficult because I think we expect so much. We've got to forget we're not a 1-man team or a 2-man team, talking about him and Cal. And all that really matters, obviously the performance matters, that you're kind of getting involved with the team and helping them out in every game. But you look at the stats, he's scoring goals. We have kind of had the conversation amongst other fans, amongst ourselves, that we want to see more out of Reuben. But if you lay down the facts, he's got the same goals, if what you're saying is correct, and I imagine that it is, as Mullin. And all that I've heard from fans from different teams this season is kind of saying how good Mullin is. And if he's got the same amount of goals from him, and Reuben to me isn't a striker, then how can you slag him off, to be honest? But it's great to have him scoring, especially if Wootton kind of doesn't get one in a game. It makes you feel like we've got kind of maybe a bit of a playmaker, can make a goal out of nothing. We know what he's got in his locker. I mean, the goal that he scored against Halifax, it was one of them. Is it going to go in? Is it going to go in? And then it went in, and it was just kind of a great goal. And that's the kind of thing Reuben produces, and he brings a lot more to the team than that. But when the whole team is having an off day, or whatever you want to call it, then you start picking out the players you assume to kind of carry the game, play well. But I can't really say a lot against him when he's kind of doing the business and scoring the goals. So we'll see how he goes. But obviously, I think we've got to remember that he had a tough start to his time at Notts to begin with. Wasn't really given too much of a chance. And then once he got started, and obviously Cal was injured, he was kind of in the spotlight. So we'll see if that comes back over the next few weeks.
Plenty of comments on Reuben. Chris Gosling says, Reuben is scoring himself into form. I'll take that. Ian Burchnall, I don't think Reuben is playing at his best, but still coming up with goals in the last few games. Think he can only get better. Lee Brearley, if Reuben was consistent, he could play in League One, but he drifts. But again, I hope he proves me wrong as playing exceptional. PJ Defiance, we still need another prolific striker to help Wootton if he gets injured. Gary Wardle, Reuben will have a dip. It's what he does and is to be expected. Pythagorean, Ardley's arguably biggest mistake was not recognising Reuben as a 10. That could have been the difference last season. Max Seth says, I personally think Reuben plays better when Kell isn't in the team, but they are good together. M. Fall says, Reuben may be our first Moneyball sell on. I think it's difficult for Reuben, because do you judge him on the goals that he scores, or do you judge him as a flair midfielder? There are not many players of Reuben's type. If we look at that list of goal scorers, he's the only one, I think, looking at that list, who is not an out and out striker. You know, and there's an interesting debate as to where you're playing when you're at home, where you're playing when you're away, how you accommodate him in a team, certainly away from home, when you have, for instance, Kel Roberts and Aaron Namani both playing, because as a 3, they don't give you a huge amount of defensive cover when you've not necessarily got the ball. So I think it's difficult. And anyone that plays in Reuben's position and scores the volume of goals, because he got, was it 12 or 13 last season? That's a pretty good, in fact, it's an exceptional return to say he's not an out and out striker. So I think it's interesting how people judge him. Because a lot of people will say, oh, he's not in the game much, or he's got fantastic flair. But his goals alone tell you that he's an important asset. He's an important asset. And one of the few stats that I do attach importance to are number of goals scored by players. And he is very, very good in that regard. He's got 6. But quite a few of our fans would say, oh, he's been really quiet, not done a lot this season.
Yeah, of course. And I completely agree with you on that. If he's scoring goals, he's impacting games. What more can you ask? If you score goals, you've got more of a chance of winning the game. And especially we've got other players maybe not scoring, he's stepping up to the mark. And I think it kind of shows you what kind of player he is when maybe you are seeing less of him or less interaction with him during the game, but he's still coming up with the goal. So that to me shows a sign of a good player. Don't get me wrong, you can't play well every week. It's a difficult league, and I completely agree with what someone said in the comments, that if he was consistent, of course he'd be a League One player. You can say the same about Kyle Wootton and Kyle Roberts and players like that. And at the end of the day, there is a reason they're in the National League now. They are obviously going to get better as time goes on, and they probably will move up in the leagues. But for right now, the consistency is just gonna build up for them. But I just completely agree with goals are what matters, and if that's how he's going to impact the game, I'd much rather him score than have a great game, to be honest, and not score. So the points in this league are what matters the most to me.
David Shorter says, would like to see Ruben's stats regarding the work he does off the ball, as I feel he is a really hard worker. Ian Burchnall, I think you're doing Ruben an injustice. His work in getting back to defend has definitely improved, especially if he loses the ball. Chris Gosling, agree, David, his off-the-ball work rate has improved immensely this season. Simon Sims, Ruben is a game changer. He could be quiet for 89 minutes, then pop along with a winning goal or assist. And I think those kind of spread of comments kind of sum up Ruben. I take Ian's point entirely, and Chris, that I undoubtedly is a much more effective player and affects the game much more under Ian than he did when he was with Neil and had his chances limited. I'm not sure of most of the games that I've seen that necessarily Ruben is a hub of the game. I think he's at his most dangerous in and around other people's boxes, where his skill comes to the fore. Gary Smithhurst makes a good point. He has some discipline issues he needs to work on. Could easily have seen red a couple of times recently. Okay, we've had a good chat on Ruben. Let's talk FA Cup. Let's talk FA Cup. Tamworth away. Last season, we got into the first round proper. We beat Belper at home 2-1. We got a late win at Eastleigh. I think you missed 2 goals and I missed 1 goal as we were coming back out towards the railway station. And then we went to Northampton and, to be honest, got absolutely battered in our first game against league opposition since we dropped out of the league. For people of my era, the FA Cup, is arguably the world's most famous cup competition. It has lost a little bit of its sparkle in recent years. What's your thoughts on the FA Cup? How important is the FA Cup to you, Chloe?
I kind of grew up when it was still a big deal. So to me, from a young age, it's the FA Cup. It's this big event, especially when there's a smaller club competing. It makes it all the more exciting, whether your team's in it or not. But I've just kind of found that, I don't know if this is a fair comment or not, but with the more foreign managers that's coming to the Premier League, you see a lot of the games that are kind of against lesser opposition and they put half a side out. And then the smaller teams end up beating those because they've took them so lightly. So I think, for example, it's like Arsenal have played Nottingham Forest a few times and put a B-string side out and they've just managed to kind of walk through them. But for me, it's always an event. Obviously, we went to Ebbsfleet a couple of seasons ago and you miss the goals, which actually kind of mean more in the FA Cup sometimes than the league, especially if you're having a rough time in the league. It's a little bit of a getaway, a fresh start, and it can always kind of kick on. And I think, I'm not sure whether it was the FA Cup or the FA Trophy where we missed out due to COVID. I think that was last season. And it's I love the cup competitions. Like I say, it's a fresh start from the league. It's again different oppositions, and it is massive for me. And we've been lucky that we have played quite a few big teams, especially in the time that I've supported Notts. And I know a lot of clubs always hope and dream of the big draws, and we've seen a couple of them luckily, and we've gave them a game. It's like we've played Liverpool and took them to extra time. We obviously played Man City at home and took it to a draw and played there. So it's always been a big competition for me, and I think it always will be. So to get into the first proper round would be ideal. And obviously, I imagine that we'll easily sell out Tamworth away. So again, it'll be a big event and a big day for Notts fans. And luckily, it's obviously local with it being kind of regionalised, but it's only an hour away. So yeah, it'll be really good to see all the Notts fans back down there.
Yeah, and to clarify, as Dean Gollin and Chris Gosling are both on the mark, the last time we played in the FA Cup, I should have phrased it, last season, COVID, we had to pull out, didn't we? So the last time we played. And it is interesting here on your comments that some very much in the camp, we must play our strongest team. Others very much in the opposite camp, not important, make sure we rest our players, don't want any more injuries. So it's interesting, even among our fan base, it's very different. Chris Gosling, I hope we play our strongest team Saturday. I would like to see how we shape up against higher league opposition. Kevin J.S. Duska Jr. Out in Montreal from abroad. The FA Cup is the most exciting competition in football. Gary Wardle, higher league opposition would be a one-off, so pointless. We are down to the bones, so need to concentrate on the league to even make playoffs. Chris Gosling makes a good point. There's also the money aspect, Gary. Ian Burchnall, some of my best away days following the club have been in the FA Cup. Spurs, Manchester City, Fulham, Sunderland, etc. Chris Gosling, FA Trophy is the better competition for squad rotation. Gary Wardle, a one-off money game rather than promotion. David Shorter, good cup runs can drive league performance. Just look at Lincoln. Yeah, I think Lincoln were non-league, weren't they? And went up under the Cowleys in the year. They had some remarkable cup games and earned an absolute fortune. And I'm in the camp for two or three reasons that I think Notts should play their strongest team. And one of the reasons, from I think success in any competition, winning matches, as far as I'm concerned, breeds winning matches. And I would want us not to have any banana skins at Tamworth 4G pitch. I think one of our followers here has mentioned Tyrell Waite, former Notts trainee, will be in the Tamworth ranks. I don't think the club really needs too many more upsets than it's had over the last 2 or 3 years. And us going out at Tamworth would probably be one of the biggest shocks of the round. So I think we need to treat this as importantly as any league game. You know, we talk about having one of the strongest squads and groups of players in the National League. There's not much point in having one of them if you decide you need to rest players for an FA Cup tie. I think the other point is the financial aspect. And there is decent money now running into tens of thousands of pounds just getting through. Forget your cut of gate receipts and all the rest of it. The FA basically have loaded quite heavily now sums of money for winning games. This was designed to try and combat league clubs and Premier League clubs not prioritising the FA Cup. So there's some good levels of money around, and clearly Notts are a draw in these rounds of competitions of the FA Cup, and where TV monies can be important sources of revenue. And you know, one thing that concerns me a little bit, you know, we have our official supporters association, Notts County OSA, who do an immense amount of work, Pat Akers and her group of people. And there is not a day goes by when they are not rattling the pots for some sort of fundraising initiative or another to keep the academy, and I use that phrase very loosely, keep the academy going. And clearly, the efforts of the OSA are excellent. It's difficult for them to raise too much more than the low number of single thousands, okay, being realistic with fundraising. And I think, the club encourage that, and that is right. The OSA do their bit. Yet when you are talking about getting through in a cup game, I would estimate that beating Tamworth on Saturday for Notts County is worth a minimum, absolute minimum of £20,000. Absolute minimum. You might get the worst draw in history the next round against a team with 47 people going it. But for me, by the time you add up everything, minimum 20. And if you dropped lucky, it could be worth 100 grand. And I don't think Notts are in the position at the minute to start prioritising National League promotion against a game in the FA Cup. I get the FA Trophy. But I think the FA Cup needs to be taken properly, professionally and seriously. And let's be honest, for us as supporters, this is the only chance you have got of seeing Notts County play a club in the Football League this season. It's the only chance you've got of going to Sunderland. It's the only chance you've got of going to Lincoln. It's the only chance you've got of going to Mansfield. It's the only chance. So, personally, I think we need to take it very seriously. Gary Wardle, if we have one of the better teams and squads, why have we been playing players carrying injuries? Doesn't add up. Interesting point. NCFC Pie, evening, bit late and just catching up. Why can't fans give credit to Notts instead of Yeovil were crap? I'm sure Notts will keep performing better. If new after loss, they won't be slaughtered on socials. NCFC Pie, play it back. You will hear me say that credit should go to Notts. The opposition plays as well as we will let them. Yeah. Take your point about social media. I think both sides are equally guilty in these kind of debates. Kevin J.S. Duska Jr., who has a vested interest in this as his sponsor, do you guys think that Tiernan Brooks will get a start in either the trophy or cup, as he hasn't played cup games for Worksop? Well researched. Sorry to be a little bit pessimistic, Kevin. There is talk that Sam Slocum will be back for Saturday. So Tiernan might be third in line for a cup. Trophy, I would think there must be a reasonable chance. Not so sure FA Cup. My understanding is that Sam Slocum comes into contention to play Saturday. Ian Burchnall, agree, Paul, your sentiments regards the FA Cup, but think IB will play some fringe players like Sam and Vincent. I think we would all be wanting to see Vincent sooner rather than later, and I think he has got in enough fitness preparation now to be well and truly knocking on the door to start. Max Seth, FA Cup gives fringe players a chance to prove themselves. It's also a morale booster if you win. Totally agree, Max. If you lose, the pressure valve will be well and truly back on, I can promise you. Gary Wardle, Notts are nowhere near like that Lincoln side. Get real. Well, time will tell at the end of the season. Chris Gosling, Mansfield at Meadow Lane in round 1. David Shorter, never underestimate lower league sides. I was at Runcorn all those years ago when we got dumped out. Yeah, that was a famous cup defeat in the 60s. I was a bit too young to have gone to that, but it was quite a seminal moment. Brian Morphus, now Newcastle can afford to spend a few quid. Should we be worried about a January offer for Kel? 20 million would be hard to refuse. I think PSG should be more worried about losing Kylian Mbappe than we should be about losing Kel to Newcastle. Much as he would love it, I'm sure. Right. So, yeah, fairly split, probably 60-40 strongest team. Will you be there, Chloe?
Yeah, I managed to get my ticket today, so I'll be there. But yeah,
as well today. Yeah,
it'll be an interesting one. I'm the same as you. I'd like to see a full team out. Everyone talks about injuries. You can get in an injury in any game, so it's just one of them. Do you take your chances?
we seem to be getting more injuries in training than ruddy games at the minute. It's training we should be not bothering. If we're worried about getting injuries, don't bother training.
Yeah, literally, that's just the way that it seems to be going at the minute. But it's one of them for me that what will happen is if we played our fringe players like some fans want and then they lose the game and then a lot of fans turn around and go, well, we should have played our full team, and it's kind of like that's easy to say once you've lost and you've played the fringe players. But like you said, it can only add confidence to the players if you then go and win that game. They're all as important as each other, and a lot of the players will know the importance of cup games alongside league games, and they will want to be playing in the game. They'll want to be getting the win. I imagine that they're not going to be players that are like, oh, we're not really bothered, let's concentrate on the league. They want to win everything possible. I saw an interview with Kyle Cameron. He's obviously our captain, and he was like, we want to, obviously we're not going to win the FA Cup, straight put it out there, but to just get a good run, they all want to be involved in that. And like I say, it's only going to add confidence. And then you build that confidence onto the win away at Yeovil, and you take that into the upcoming games, and you're just helping yourselves out. But it's still going to be a difficult one. They're going to be up for it. Nothing to lose kind of game. They're at home. Should be a fairly big crowd for them, especially. So it's not one to take lightly. And I think people maybe underestimate them a lot. I've seen it happen before through against lesser opposition, and we've maybe played a few of these fringe players and you've taken them far too lightly. I think I'd love to see kind of first team out there, maybe see Slocum back in goal if he's fit. That helps his minutes as well, because we need him to get some minutes in a game before like the Stockport game, I'd like to think. So I'm hoping that it's only going to be a positive for everyone, really.
Royston says cup run means money, and he's put money in capitals just to underline it. Dale Pikett, 3 or 4G pitch on Saturday. I can't remember which one. Safe to say there won't be any blades of real grass on it. I think it's probably a 4G. We're having a debate on subs in the FA Cup. I'm not honestly sure what the answer to that one is. Chris Jordan, strongest team with some fringe on the bench to build momentum. Rudy Hulsman out in Belgium, I think, Rudy. Strongest team always. Chris Gosling, if you can have 7 on the bench, start with your strongest team with the hope of bringing players off. Keith Locke, how many tickets have been sold? Not sure. I know they're selling well. They've not sold out. I got mine about a couple of hours ago. But Chloe, you would expect us to go close to selling out of that allocation, yeah, with your knowledge of ticketing?
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's one that I spoke to a lot of people that they're wanting to get tickets for. I think today and tomorrow is kind of like Season Ticket and Lifeline. And as far as I'm aware, Wednesday is general sale. That's just what I've read up. So I could be wrong on dates, but I'm in the ticket office on Wednesday, so I'll get a kind of better idea of numbers. But yeah, I can imagine we'd sell that out with kind of what I've seen on social media and the people that I spoke to. I know a lot of people are wanting to get down with it being so close.
Pythagoras, always fearful memories of that Southport loss. Yeah, we've had some bad defeats in the FA Cup down the years. Okay, that's the FA Cup. We'll all be there. We all hope to be in the hat for the next round. Want to talk now about where we are. So last week, pressure valve about to explode, lost 3 on the spin. Huge debate and conjecture about Knott's method and approach. Huge debate and conjecture about whether 40-year-old Michael Doyle was going to come back into the team. And in the end, he didn't. 1-2-0. Can't get better than that away from home. But as we mentioned at the top of the programme, after Tamworth, Notts have a run of 3 games in a week. which has home against Stockport, home against Bromley, away to Grimsby, and the following game after that is home to Solihull, and of course a return of Neil Ardley. What's your take, Chloe? How much more currency is there in the bank as a result of Saturday? The return of Kyle Cameron, who hasn't played on a losing team yet. The impending return of Sam Slocum in goal. The reavailability of Connell Rawlinson. Half full, half empty? Where are you?
I kind of see it as maybe recently it's been a little bit of an excuse, not from the manager as such. I don't think he's turned around and been like, well, look at all of our injuries, this is why we're losing. More from a fan's perspective. Even I've kind of been like, well, look who we've got out. And it's easy to kind of say that when you've got big players out and you're missing them. So it's interesting to see when we've got them all back, that's no longer an excuse, whether that's in a cup game, whether that's in a league game. But obviously, they're going to need to get back their match fitness, so which we need them to be back on form for the upcoming long run of difficult games. So half full in terms of I'm glad to see them all coming back. Don't get me wrong, the two lone players that have come in have done well. They've had a tough run, obviously, results-wise, a lot of goals conceded. But I am glad to have kind of our first team players back as such. And hopefully get minutes and legs at Tamworth. I wouldn't say they're fringe players because they'd be players that you would be in your starting 11 had they been fit. But hopefully they don't pick up any more injuries. Obviously, I'm not sure what's happened to Lacey, whether that's kind of another injury problem or whether it was just resting him. But it'd be good to see some of them back, especially.
Okay. Inspector 71, the manager will get absolutely hammered if we play a weaker team and lose on Saturday. He cannot afford to take the risk. Gary Wardle, to those saying play our strongest team, regardless, if we play Lacey, Slocum, Chickson, and they miss league games because of it, would that be worth a money game? Chris Jordan, when I say strongest team, I meant strongest match fit team. Kevin J.S. Duska, the sample size remains too small to make a judgment. Any assertion regarding a trend is positively or negatively reactionary, as was the discussion of sacking IB. I'd have probably understood more of that, Kevin, if you bunged it in French, to be honest. I know what you're saying. What else have we got coming in? Let's have a look. We'll come on to that in a bit. We'll come on to some of that debate because that's taking it a little bit too far at this moment in time. Max Seth, I thought, was very good. He makes the point that the next 4 league matches will show where knots are. I would take 8 points from the next 4 league games, which I think is a pretty level-headed approach. The reality of Notts County's situation in the National League is there will very rarely be a level-headed approach week in, week out. I do agree that after those 4 games, I think you will be able to understand a little bit more about the development of this team and the capability of this team, because clearly you would be hoping for this group of players to harbour realistic hopes of getting promoted. Then you clearly need to be competing effectively against those other 4 teams. They will be viewing those matches just as importantly as we are, and there will be as much pressure on them as there is on us. So I think that run of games is going to be incredibly telling, and you hope the Notts County team that turns up is the one that turned up at Wrexham, where we absolutely gave as good as we got. We showed a lot of resilience, not often a word we use in recent times. We showed a lot of resilience, and I think we're going to need that in those games. And you know, we have unfortunately two camps: one who would like Ian Burchnall sacked tomorrow, and another who think Ian Burchnall is the greatest Notts County manager in the history of the club. Neither are right. As always, it's somewhere in the middle. And what will tell us where Ian Burchnall is as a manager of Notts County is the results this season. That is what will tell us whether he's any good or not. And I think, sadly, because of the position that we're in, I do think a lot of Notts fans have a huge superiority complex. You know, we're very quick to dance on Southend's grave, aren't we? You know, I've seen a few digs tonight about Phil Brown, you know, fake suntan, all the rest of it. Southend have largely gone through what Notts have gone through, but been even more polarised. But you know, we quickly dance on their grave. I don't think at this moment in time we have any reason for any form of superiority in this league, other than we've probably got a better stadium than everybody else, and we have got a supporter base that currently is on a par with Wrexham's as probably the two biggest. But if I'm honest with you, Stockport, Chesterfield, Grimsby, you will probably find their average gates are not going to be a million miles off the average gates that we put out this season. So I don't think we've got a huge superiority complex. But I do think this coming group of games we've got, we're going to find out more about our head coach and about our players. You know, we talk about Reuben and Kel being the two best players in the National League. We talk about how our players can play in a higher standard. The objective this season is to get promoted, nothing else. With the talent that we have, then you expect your bigger players to turn up in the bigger games. And that next 4 games in the league are, every game's a big game. The next game is always the biggest. But those 4 are big games. We're playing other clubs who have, with the possible exception of Solihull, equal rights to feel they can get out of this division this year. So I think it's going to be very interesting. You know, and we have got home advantage in 3 of those games, don't forget. We have got home advantage in 3 of those games. I think it's going to be very interesting. And it would be nice to think that we can all kind of park the personal differences that we have. Because by and large, the people, Ian Burchnall acolytes who say we should give him time are the ones who turn round and say Neil Ardley should have been sacked 6 months earlier. There needs to be some consistency. You know, I read one of, I'm not going to name him, but I read one of our Muppets on social media saying the only reason he got a season ticket this season was because Ian Burchnall was the manager. Well, that don't make you a supporter of Notts County Football Club. That just makes you a disciple of Ian Burchnall. You know, you support a football club. You don't support an individual. You don't support, you know, you support the club. You support your club, whoever is head coach, whoever's centre forward, whoever's owner, whoever's chairman. Yeah, that's what supporting your club is all about. And of course, we all have individual preferences for who we think should be here and there and doing that. But we all want Notts to win, I believe. We all want Notts to win the next game. And if we can somehow park it a little bit, because I do think this mini run of 4 games after the FA Cup is going to be pretty pivotal. Chris Gosling, the least Ian Burchnall deserves is the full season playing his way and be judged at the end of that. Let's see. Jurgen Halligan, we can only judge him at the end of the season. Gary Wardle, Stockport, Bromley, Grimsby and Solihull, 8 points. Husky looking at tops, 6 points from the 4. NCFC Pie, but Notts could win all of them and fans will still be disappointed and find faults wanting Burchnall sacked. Well, the best test so far this season, couple of wins and could really be the springboard. What I don't get, from Chris's point of view, the least Ian Burchnall deserves is the full season playing his way. If we lose the next 10 games, do you really think he gets it? I'm not for a minute saying he's going to lose 10. We kind of seem to have delusional standpoints here. Delusional standpoints. And we have these two massive chasms of, we must have this guy, he's going to do this, whatever, right? And there's others who say, well, whatever he does, he's going to get the sack. The truth, results will out this debate. Results will shape this debate, not a style of play. Not a style of play. Results, nothing else. And ultimately, the only people that make the decision will be Alexander and Christoph Reeves. No one else. No one else. Husky, other teams have bigger players. Kel Foster, when it clicks, it's beautiful, but we need to be able to do the dirty side of the game as well. It's about finding the right balance. And I think we can even see in these points here the sort of challenges we have as supporters. Because some supporters say you must give him the job for years to come. Others say go now. It's very difficult. When you're on the terraces, Chloe, what's your take of the terrace mood, or is this something that quite literally changes from game to game?
Absolutely, like you say, results form opinions, whether it's 1, whether it's 2, whether it's 10, whether it's 100, and it's easy to be in the moment. I'm exactly the same, maybe not in regards to sackings, but it's difficult to hold your emotion in when you're passionate about it and you go week in, week out, or even if you don't go every week, but you're still kind of invested. But I think it's very harsh to be like, you lose a couple of games and he's out, or the opposite way, like you say. It's one of them. It's where we finish is going to determine everything. I think it's very important we get a playoff, and I think you'll kind of know, I suppose, after Christmas whether you're in with a chance. You'll know whether you're out of a chance, definitely. But it's difficult when you see comments like other teams have bigger players and things like this, and we look at the stats, and I'm not saying this is going to be how the season pans out. We've got Reuben Rodriguez, who we're all saying is out of form, in the same goal as Mullen. It's just a difficult one, but I think I'm really interested to see us play against these top teams. It might help us in the fact that we might be able to kind of play our style of football to how we want to play. And pretty much you'll find out these are the teams that we need to be beating and competing against to go up this season or to get a playoff. So however we perform against them, they're our biggest rivals, all of them, this season. Everyone is going to struggle against some of the lesser sides. It's just how this division works. So I kind of see these as more pivotal games, as maybe the lesser sides kind of have less to play for. They just want to stay in the league and they go to the bigger clubs like us, like Stockport, like Wrexham, like Grimsby, etc. And they'll give it everything that they've got and they'll play a certain style of football that doesn't suit those bigger sides that have a certain way that they want to play to get promoted. And hopefully that'll advantage us. And like you say, definitely 3 home games. It is vital that we pick up some points out of those. I'm not expecting to win all 3, definitely not. We've got tough opponents, but I think you'll see a mood change again if we're not getting at least 1 home win out of those. I think that's just how football fans are. You get it at every single club. But I think you've just got to take a step back sometimes, look at the bigger picture and see if which direction we're going in. But it's going to be interesting to see it. Tamworth first is going to be interesting. And then I think that'll maybe kind of sort of determine the way we're going to go into the next few games at home. It's a very interesting one, but I wouldn't want to be kind of jumping on the bandwagon too quickly. But then also not go the other way, like you say, of we need to give him the next 3 seasons and he needs to be here for the next, 5 years to properly put his stamp on the team. But like you say, somewhere in between, and results are all that matters. But bigger picture always, obviously your emotions get high after the one game, but like I say, it's always great coming to this podcast to have a chat a couple of days afterwards, see perspectives once emotions have calmed down, seeing the results of other teams and see where we are and what direction we're going in. So it's definitely going to be an interesting few weeks, but I'm looking forward to it.
It's certainly, this debate is sparking quite a few comments. Derek Gill, if Ardley would have stayed, we would have won the FA trophy, replies Gary Wardle. Whoopie-doo, Derek. Please, gentlemen, it's all good-natured banter. In Burchnall, I'm with Chris Gosling. We've had far too many managers and need consistency. I'm not a massive IB fan, but he is the head coach, and let's get behind him, win, lose or draw. Paul Smith, we have beaten 5 teams beneath us in the table, drawn with 3 also in mid-table, and lost to 3 teams who are more or less above us on a points per game basis. We are where we are. Chris Gosling, I agree, Gary, that second or third place is probably our best aspiration. Paul Smith, all we can do is support the team come what may. Kel Foster, think as the season wears on, the squad depth will be telling. Some teams will drop off and some will drop off. Jurgen Halligan, we've lost 3 of the back 4, have to get a fully fit side before judging. David Short, at the end of the day, it's the players that have to make it work and the buck stops with them. Kevin J.S. Duska, prize money Saturday. If we win, £9,375. 3,125 if we lose, which Kevin has got from somewhere off Twitter. I'm sure it will be correct. But that kind of, I don't know, that's the point I was trying to make. These are sums of money that are significant to what Notts are asking supporters to do from basically handing round buckets. So I don't think that you can not take this seriously on a variety of fronts. Inspector 71, agree, Paul, totally. If we are 15th at Christmas, 15 points out of it, he goes. And in that circumstance, so he should. End of. That is football. Let's see, what else have we got? Gary Wardle, Chris, not a chance of top 3, not squaddies, not deep in talent or numbers, only in the club's delusional belief. We've got some happy punters here. But I think the debate we're having on here at the moment is born, I guess, and you make this point, Chloe, born out of emotion, born out of frustration. And I keep going back to the podcast that Paul Cox did with us, former Notts man, manager of Mansfield, won something like 20 out of the last 23 games to get Mansfield promoted out of the National League. And he said that there was a mental approach that needed to be addressed in terms of understanding Mansfield have been a football league club, albeit not as long as Notts, but a heck of a long time. And to get the mentality of coping with being in this division, accepting it, and then getting on with the job of getting out of it. And, there is a huge, huge, huge amount of frustration and emotion within our fan base and desire to get back into the Football League. So on the one hand, we turn around after we've signed a few players and say we've got the best squad of players in the league. We win 5-0 at Barnet, and we're going to storm the league. Playoffs. They weren't going to bother with that. We're going to win the league, 100 points. These things quickly go up and down all the time. And I think that one of the challenges for Ian and for the players is to deal with the often unrealistic expectations we as supporters put on them. The late Graham Taylor, who I used to spend a bit of time with, would always say to me that one of his biggest challenges was managing the expectations of your supporter base. At Watford, he overachieved, took them from the bottom division to the top flight, so they are with him. But when he first went to Aston Villa fans expect a lot more. And he said managing expectations is a crucial part of a head coach's job. And I just think it's very, 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 very difficult for Notts County in its current situation. I would liken it to Sunderland in League One. No Sunderland fan thinks Sunderland should be in League One. Every single fan thinks Sunderland Championship and Premier League, particularly what's happening at Newcastle. And so the powers that be at Sunderland have always got to manage a scenario whereby it's always got to be promotion that season. There is no 3-year plan, 4-year plan. There might be a 4-year plan to get in the Premier League, but there ain't a 4-year plan to get out of League One. And the particular challenge that we have at Notts at the minute is Sunderland have 3 places to go at. Yeah, we don't. Mathematically, we've got a 50% harder chance of going up. And I just think that's very, very, very difficult. I might be labouring that point because I've been around a lot longer than you. And to an extent, Chloe, you've only seen Notts, League One? Would you remember League One? Yeah?
Yeah, so I saw us the season after we got promoted from League Two. So I've never seen us get promoted, only relegated. So, yeah, all I've seen are the best is at League One. And obviously, there's a lot of fans' opinions that are older than what I am and have seen a lot more that we should be a League One club. And I all I can say is we are where we are for a reason, and that's down to results. Whether you want to put it down to certain managers, certain owners, that's all behind us. And we've just got to get out of this league, but in a way that's going to protect the club in the long run. We've talked about it before. Sustainability is huge, and I would hate for us to chuck loads of money at this to try and get out of the league and it go the opposite way. Obviously, everybody wants out of this league. Everybody wants to get promoted, but there is going to be a right way of doing it. And as long as it's protecting the club, then I'm happy. But of course, there is that hope that we do get promoted alongside. So I'm not saying that it's not important for us to get promoted. Of course not. It is important within the next few years, hopefully. Obviously, everyone would like to hope that it is this season, but again, it might not be. But I keep rambling on about this. It protecting the club just because I've seen us go through what we've gone through, and I'd never want to see us go through that again or even worse. So yeah, definitely don't want to see it go the opposite way for us.
Okay, let's just wrap up with some final comments. Bob H, look on the bright side. If we don't go up, we will probably be playing Mansfield anyway. Oh, dear me. Paul Smith, the quickest way out of this division is probably downwards. Be careful what you wish for. Inspector 71. Gary Wardle, like everyone, I wish for more, but do not see that direction of travel. Same fixtures as last year, and we are still behind on points gained. Inspector 71, I want effective football to get us to the top end of this league. NCFC Pride, every other team in this league wants the same thing. Only 2 can go up. We need to be realistic. Gary Wardle, quarter of the season gone, and we are no further on than last year, having played the same fixtures. Balham from London. I remember the 2009-2010 when you had Sven and won the league, including a trip for a friendly match with Juventus. My first actual knowledge of the club. NCFC Pie, support when they win, support when they draw, and support when they lose. And life would be so much happier. It's only a game of football. Gary Smithhurst, I feel sorry for Chloe, never seeing Notts promoted or higher up than League One. Needs a medal. Chris Gosling heard talk today of the EFL proposing a joint TV deal with the Premier League. If that happens, the National League will fall further behind. One thing my producer son, hot off the press, has informed me is that our former Chief Executive, Jim Rodwell, has this evening been announced as the new interim Chief Executive of Peterborough United. There is hope for all of us. That will be a very interesting clash of minds, and I use the word very loosely, with Darragh McAntony and Jim Rodwell. However, we need to put our own house in order first. That's it for tonight, 65 minutes. Thank you. It's been very, very lively on the message boards this evening. Let's hope we can all meet up at Tamworth. Let's all hope we can have an FA Cup run. And then we get into some really serious business of 4 games that each and every one, I am sure, will have a great atmosphere. And let's make sure we are on the right side of the scoreline. Thank you very much, everyone, for tonight. Thank you, Chloe. Good to have you on board.
Yeah, as always. Thank you a lot.
Yeah, that's great. And we will be catching up later this week. We'll have another show looking ahead to Tamworth, where as long as we can get Leigh Curtis out of his sick bed, we will keep you posted. Thank you very much again for all the lively, good-natured debate, as always. And here's to getting into the first round proper of the FA Cup.